Hi guys, Cabal here, and yesterday I spent the better part of a day doing dungeons and guild tests on my Conjurer and Arcanist, and I grouped with about a half dozen parties that had players that were obviously new to tanking. Needless to say, we spent a lot of time wiping, and almost every wipe was a direct result of the tank making a mistake. In a couple of the parties I was in, the tanks were treated horribly whenever they made a mistake. The parties verbally crucified them. In one case, the tank dropped out of the party because of the flaming. I felt pretty bad for the guy. After he dropped, I asked the party how they could ever expect a player like him to learn to tank when he gets treated like that every time he makes a mistake. I mean, the guy was obviously learning. So I decided to make a video covering the basic do's and don'ts of tanking in dungeons. This video is for players that are new to tanking. So we're going to cover a handful of basic tanking guidelines. Let's start with the very first guideline. Make sure your healer is ready and nearby. When I zone into a dungeon, usually the first thing I do is set focus to the healer. Before I pull, I target the healer and make sure that he appears to be ready before pulling. The next guideline is to utilize targeting symbols. I typically mark the target that I want the party to focus on with a 1 symbol. This way the party knows which target to focus fire on. The flip side is that you shouldn't assume that everyone in your party is going to attack that target. So when you conduct your rotation, you need to generate as much enmity as possible and make sure that you spread the enmity around to the various targets. Let's move on to the next guideline, which is to pull mobs back. By pulling mobs back, you give your party more room to maneuver and therefore reduce the chance of accidentally body pulling a patrol or a nearby stationary pack of mobs. Be patient and watch out for patrols. There are a lot of slow-moving patrols in Final Fantasy XIV dungeons, especially in the dungeon that I'm in this video. Some of these patrols move around stationary mobs, and you can sometimes pull them without aggroing the stationary mob. Keep an eye out for patrols 100% of the time in dungeons, and pull patrols first whenever possible. Okay, we are now moving on to additional trash pulls. Okay, there's a patrol right there, so I'm going to pull him back. Actually, fight or flight, pull him back with shield lob way back here. Bloodbath, stun him, and I'm going to face him away from the party. The next recommendation is to keep mobs facing away from the party. A lot of mobs and bosses in Final Fantasy XIV have frontal AoE attacks. By keeping mobs facing away from your party, only you sustain damage from their attacks. Let's move on to the next guideline, which is to always hold aggro. Now this is the guideline that the tanks failed to follow most of yesterday during my pugs. Make sure that you have aggro on all of the mobs 100% of the time. If you lose aggro on a target, provoke it, or you can stun it with shield bash and then start spamming Rage of Halone or the Halone combo on it. Or you can spam shield lob on a ranged mob. Alternatively, you can cast cover on a party member that has aggro. But don't be the tank that is completely oblivious to the fact that a mob is pummeling your healer for a solid minute. All these recommendations can be summarized in 2 words. Be paranoid. Assume unexpected things will happen, assume things will go wrong, and have a plan ready to handle it. And that wraps up this video. Thanks for watching.